Dennis Lehane, welcome. We're at the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books, and you're sitting down with PBS Book 2 now. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so this is a new book.
Yes.
Joe Coughlin book. I was asking you off camera what you call this. It's not necessarily a trilogy, you said. Tell me how you perceive these new books. This one's called World Gone By, by the way.
I consider 3 standalones that are connected by a bloodline, which is the Coughlin family. So Joe, who is now 38, I believe, in this book, he was a star of Live by Night, in which he was 20 to 27, I believe. And then he was a little boy, very minor character in The Given Day. So, but each of the books is meant to look at, really, if anything, they look at father and son issues through 3 different sets of fathers and sons.
We've gone a little further in the story now.
Yep.
Tell us about what it is about this scenario, this world that you've created that is so attractive to you.
Well, I loved sort of the American history between the wars, and that was really where I started. Was the Given Day begins practically on Armistice Day in 1918, and then this one ends middle of World War II. I didn't originally intend that, but that's the way it just worked out. So I just find that time period very rich and simultaneously extremely corrupt and extremely innocent. So, and once I moved the action of the books towards the Latin Quarter of Tampa, it picked up a very kind of Casablanca-esque feel, which I enjoyed. I was just thinking, the more I read about Ybor City, which is the Latin Quarter of Tampa, in that time period, it was filled with revolutionaries, and it was filled with exiles, and it was filled with gangsters, and it was filled with union organizers and Cuban cigar workers, and it just felt, that's what I meant by Casablanca. It felt like that world, not the real Casablanca,
right,
but the world of that film, a world of sort of refugees and revolutionaries and romance. So that's what I wanted to.
Joe Coughlin is a character that I find myself constantly rooting for. He lives in a world of corruption and all these things, and yet I find myself completely behind him. He's like, how do you do that?
Which is weird, right? Well, what you do is you don't judge the character. What I understand about Joe is, Joe's a gangster. Joe has a lot of blood on his hands. His folly is that he thinks that he may be able to atone for it, if you will, and particularly in this book. He may be able to escape the grasp of it. And but what makes, I think, all bad people interesting is the vast majority of them don't know that they're bad. They wake up the same day. They wake up the same way we wake up. They wake up with the same desires. I would like to have happiness. I would like to protect my children. I would like maybe to fall in love. I mean, I think it's all connected. So with Joe, he doesn't know that he's a pretty bad guy until somebody says it to him late in the book. Somebody says, you've come under the impression that feeling bad about the bad things you do makes you good. And it doesn't work that way. Yeah. And that's sort of the crux of this character. You look at any of the great things that deal with gangsters, and you're starting from an essential premise, which is, yes, gangsters are very bad people, but they're also mirrors of capitalism. And so is the gangster much worse than, say, the banker or the stockbroker who knowingly wipes out the fortunes of hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people because they wanted to play fast and liquid stock and they wanted to have another yacht? Are they worse? I think that's the essential question of this sort of the gang. It's not that they're better. Gangsters aren't better, but they're holding up a mirror to the rest of our society, saying, why does this group over here get the imprimatur of respect as greedy capitalists, but this group over here gets treated as if the great unwashed? Yeah. So when I wrote this, I was just writing a book about a man who is the golden goose, who is makes money for all his friends, threatens nobody, and moves easily between high society and low society, and is the bridge, is beloved between all communities. And then somebody whispers in his ear that somebody is going to kill him, which makes no sense. And that becomes the driving engine of the book. So. Yeah, and it's a tension that underlies the entire book. You're always just waiting for something. The interesting thing about the way you've written these books, though, is that in a way it doesn't necessarily matter what happens to Joe. You can continue to find a way to write this bloodline if you want to continue something along. Oh yeah, the bloodline from the Given Day is still it went and it spread. So we know that Joe has 2 other brothers out there. We know that he has a child. There's also in the Given Day there was the Lawrence family, which is an African American family. So were I to want to continue doing this, which right now I don't know if I will. My current novel I'm writing is completely contemporary. But if I were, then yeah, I have the bench. I have a bench that I can pluck somebody off and say, go play shortstop.
Great characters. I'm ready for you to explore in this one. But tell me about how that decision process for you to write which book you're going to write next and where it's going to come from. I remember when we talked about the Given Day, that was a big leap, a big change for you. And since then you're sort of doing a bunch of different things now. But tell me how you make that decision about where the next one's going.
The answer is I don't. I never know until one book's done, it's down, and then I start fishing for the next idea. And whatever
How do you
idea,
do that? What are you fishing? What's the process?
That's where it gets really arty. You know, you sit in a room, you stare at a wall, you stare at a ceiling, you try and kind of let your mind go. You do a lot of bike rides. I get a lot of ideas in showers, taking showers first thing in the morning. I don't know the mystical place it comes from, and I'm not sure I want to. There's a great line in All the Pretty Horses, "Where'd you get the gun?" And he says, "The getting place." That's kind of where do you get your ideas? The getting place? I don't know. But once it does capture me, and I can only write when I'm really passionate, I know it, and I go forging forward. I go charging on ahead.
So a bell rings and it's there, and you know it.
And you know it, and you know when it's you try for a while, sometimes another idea, but then you shelve it because it's not grabbing you the same way. So my next novel that I'm just embarking on is very icy and Hitchcockian and very different than probably anything. The closest kin it has in any of my books would probably be Shutter Island, but without the gothic, without the
so characters you've never met before.
Absolutely, really self-contained, super self-contained. It's really the story of a marriage, as a marriage that is in turmoil and maybe some other things as well. And
I'm not trying to make a connection to your own family here, but I am curious about how your family, you have kids, they're getting older, your life continues to evolve and change. How has that affected your writing?
It's made me very more organized in my process. I punch the clock more. I get in there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I write because I know I have to be home, or might have to pick up one of my girls at school at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It becomes much more rigid in terms of how I work, which has made me produce a lot more. Because before I was kind of like, I'll write this morning. I won't. I'll get around to it. I'll write tonight. I'll write when I feel like it. I'll play a little Madden. It was a very scattershot process. Now it's very, very routine.
So it's like it's sort of sharpened the professional side of
it. Has completely sharpened the professional side of it.
Yeah,
yes,
that's interesting.
Yes, it's made me far less arty, I guess.
And you're still doing TV. We mentioned Boardwalk Empire. What else are you doing in television these days?
I've got 3 different TV shows in various stages of development that I'm developing that I've written. One was with Showtime, one's with HBO, one's with WGN America.
So do you approach these folks, or do they come to you? Because you've written, everyone knows about your work on The Wire, and now Boardwalk Empire. So
yeah, I'm usually approached.
Because I'm still waiting for the Dennis Lehane production company to come out of this. Or you're developing projects for television or web or whatever.
Well, I am developing projects. I do have a production company that would end up being on the logos, but I'm not. How do I put it? I'm not a mogul by any means. I'm just developing my own projects, but they have been brought in two circumstances. They were brought to me by producers, and then we went and we did what's known as pitching a network, and we sold the networks on it.
Well, your new book, World Gone By, Dennis Lehane. Very excited about this one.
Thank you.
I wish you all the best of luck. Thanks for visiting us again.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot. This was great.
Always a great talk.
Thanks.
Thanks.